I feel like there's this misconception that therapy is Freudian. What does that look like?
So we're thinking a bald man with the notebook, clients laying on this big leather couch.
You realize that your mother is the root of all your issues.
I'm Marjolaine.
And I'm Michael, and we're on the grad school journey to becoming licensed therapists.
Come with us to class as we discuss and dissect all we can learn about mental health, relationships, therapy techniques, and everything in between.
With your two favorite therapists in training, this is Therapy in Progress.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Marjolaine. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
This is exciting.
It is exciting.
Episode 1, here we go.
It's the first one.
Okay, for the children. Your name. One syllable at a time. Give it to me.
Marjolaine.
Marjolaine. Okay.
Marjolaine.
Which is Dutch.
It is.
Where does it come from?
It was my grandmother's name.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
My parents were like, let's do the Dutch name. We'll give it the French spelling. It'll be better.
There's like a silent J somewhere.
It's right after the R. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Very phonetic. It's not cross-culturally confusing at all.
You ready for mine?
Ready.
Michael.
Wow, I don't know that they're going to get that.
I know.
Michael?
We might need to cancel
Did
the
I
whole
say
thing.
it right?
Yeah. Marjolaine, what are we doing here?
Well, this is Therapy in Progress.
Heyo.
Woo!
Made it out of the group chat.
Made it out the group chat. So today we are creating this new podcast because we were really inspired by everything that we're learning in our classes. So The two of us are aspiring therapists. We are currently in our master's program, master's in clinical psychology program. That's to become marriage and family therapists.
That's right.
Yes.
We are a couple semesters in. We met at the beginning of our first semester, and we kind of hit it off.
Yeah.
Should we tell the story of how this podcast came to be?
Yes, please.
We were on a hike, and we were having this great broad conversation about life and, everything. And as it turns out, we didn't realize there was this woman hiking behind us for a long time who I guess was listening to the whole conversation, because at one point she chimed in, and we were like, huh. And after that, we were like, maybe we weren't the only ones who thought this conversation was really interesting.
Yeah.
And we kind of joked about it, but then realized that we are so interested in everything we're learning that has to do with psychology and mental health, and also this process of becoming a therapist, from education to, we'll talk about the whole process.
Yeah.
We kind of wanted to bring people to class with us.
Yeah. Because the information that we're learning is so important, and we're learning practical skills. And we thought, not only are these conversations so interesting and entertaining, but it's also a really great way to make this information more accessible to everyone.
Totally. And to pull back the curtain a little bit in what the process of becoming a therapist looks like.
Yeah.
If you're ever sitting across a room from your therapist, what was their training like? What did they go through to get to where they are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of get an inside look as to what is it that your therapist knows that everyone else does not.
Yeah.
And let's give everyone this information, because it is so crucial for wellness.
So tell us a little bit about how you got here. What is your background? Why did you decide that you want to be a therapist?
Yeah. So for me, therapy was kind of always in the back of my head as something that I was considering, teetering back and forth on. But I tried a lot of different career paths and jobs, trying to figure out what it was that I really wanted to do. Eventually, I ended up having some experiences.
One universal thing you can be assured is that all therapists have been through some shit.
We've been through some things. So it really inspired me, because I'm all about turning pain into purpose. I went through some things. I went to therapy, and it was so profoundly helpful to me that I wanted to give that gift to somebody else. So that's what really motivated me to really jump in and start the process of becoming a therapist myself.
That's awesome.
What about you, Michael?
I'm a little bit different in that it didn't come to me that early. It's something that I came to a lot later in life. I'm saying that as if I'm in my mid-40s. I'm not. But I really, for most of my life, I was very committed to other things that I was doing professionally. But those things stopped making me happy.
Yeah.
Actually, quite the opposite. I was really unhappy. And it was kind of one of those scary life moments of, wow, this thing I've always done, I think I'm done and I want to look elsewhere. And one thing kind of led to another. Once my therapist kind of brought up, have you ever thought about a career in this? And then I had a good friend who was looking into the process, and that made it seem more real. And it just kind of grabbed hold of me, and that light bulb went off of oh, wait. And then I started researching, and then I started researching more, and I just very quickly got so excited about it. And I started, and I applied, and I got in, and I can honestly say, we're a couple semesters in, it is the best decision I've ever made. I feel like this is the right fit.
I second that. I really feel like I'm on the right path.
Yes.
And I feel like we're on this journey together.
Yes.
Not just us, but also all of our peers in our classes.
Yeah.
We're getting this mentorship from our professors. We're making these connections with our peers. And we're all learning about things that are so heavy, yet we're also passionate about.
And in the program, there's a sense of joy.
Yeah.
And exactly what you said, we are dealing with really intense topics, but there is a sense of levity and humor, and I hope we can bring that into this podcast.
Oh, yeah,
that
absolutely.
You can talk about serious stuff without it being, a slog.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. But yeah, I really have enjoyed our cohort and all the people we've been meeting, all the professors. It's cool to sit in a room full of people who all want to be like professional empaths. It's kind of rare. You don't find yourself in a situation all the time where you have that many great people all in one setting.
Yeah.
It's
interesting to be in a room with so many like-minded people who are on the same path as you. And we're all we're in this together.
Yeah. Who is your favorite person you've met so far? And there is a correct answer.
Well, it's actually Tim from...
Damn it.
No, of course it's you. It's
you have to say that because you're being recorded. Well, if that's true, the feeling's mutual. That's funny.
Okay, Michael. So what is it that we want this podcast to look like?
It's going to be a lot of different things. I think we want to do some myth busting. We want to get out there and start... There's these preconceived notions about therapy and about mental health that a lot of times are just incorrect. So whether that's talking about specific diagnoses and how, we sometimes throw around words colloquially that are not actually accurate.
Right.
Whether that's misconceptions about therapy itself. So I think we want to do some myth busting. I think we also want to, as we were saying, bring people to class being like, hey, in class this week we learned about bipolar disorder. Hey, in class this week we learned about generalized anxiety disorder and how so many millions of Americans have it.
Yeah.
If you've been struggling lately, does this pattern sound familiar to you?
Yeah.
Because if people can start recognizing things in themselves, there's help available.
There is.
We're also... Tell the people a little bit about what you're interested in, because that's going to be an element of this.
Yeah. So my big passion is sex therapy.
Heyo.
So, let's go. So even within that realm, there's so much to debunk in terms of what sex therapy even is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to be talking about all things sex, love, and relationships.
Your big thing is intimacy.
It's at the core of really therapy, human connection. Intimacy is the core of all of it.
So we will definitely have a segment, each episode, a sex soapbox with Marjolaine, so to speak.
My sex soapbox, I'll be on it.
We'll do some quotes of the day. We'll do some listener questions. We'll do some vocab, psychology things. It's going to be great. We're gonna kind of hit all the bases.
We're going to educate you. We're going to make sure that you have access to all the resources that are available, give you an inside look as to what therapy looks like from the therapist side. Hopefully we'll entertain you, connect with you, break some stigmas along the way.
Yeah. And full disclosure, we're in grad school, so we might be bitching a little bit because sometimes we're going to be tired and overwhelmed and have a lot of essays to write. But the great thing, I say that jokingly, I have completely relished all the work so far. It's so different than undergrad, I find, when you choose to go back to school because you really, really are interested in something.
Yes.
It's really great.
I feel like I'm learning so much in my classes and I just can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
Everything seems relevant. And also just the nature of therapy and the career that we're pursuing. I don't know about you. I think you feel the same way. But I want to be an expert before I walk into that room.
Yeah. Because it feels like this is a very high stakes profession. People are trusting us to give them good care and accurate care. And I think it's therefore really important that we do know what we're doing. And I think it's important that it's not easy to become a therapist. Yeah. It's a long process, and I think it should be.
So what does that process look like to become a therapist?
Yeah, so we're in our master's right now.
Right.
Once you have what they call a qualifying master's degree, you can become an associate. But before you even do that, while you're still in school, we do this thing called the practicum, which you all on the pod will be hearing about a lot. What is a practicum?
So a practicum is a site that you go to. It could be an agency. It could be a clinic. It can be...
a prison, even.
It could be a prison.
Yeah, all sorts of different kinds.
You could be working under somebody else's private practice. And basically, you get the opportunity to work with clients in whatever capacity you're trying to establish your own practice on under the license of somebody else, another therapist.
So it's kind of the training portion in the real world while you're still in school.
Yes.
After we do that and we finish the program, we will be an associate. And count them, how many hours do we have to rack up?
3,000 hours.
So we'll spend a couple years as an associate racking up 3,000 hours. And at that point, once you have your hours, you can sit the test.
The test.
The final boss of therapy, which is what exactly?
So that is the California licensure exam to become a therapist. And that's the final step that we have to take before we can get our license and start practicing in whatever capacity we want to.
Once you pass, you're fully licensed.
Yes.
So we are at the beginning of what can be kind of an intimidating process.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I don't know about you, but I'm along for the ride. I'm not too scared.
No, I'm definitely ready for it. And like we were saying, we want this to be a long process because we want to feel ready when we finally get there.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for every step along the way.
For all y'all listening, I've said this to her before, but I'm going to say it again. Marjolaine's going to be a fantastic therapist.
Oh, Michael.
you have the quality that you can't teach.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And you as well. I cannot wait to see what we do.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Speaking of which, talk to me about therapy. Why is this important? Why is this podcast important? What is therapy?
Yeah. So therapy is a safe place for people to go that's completely confidential, that's completely unbiased and non-judgmental, where they can talk to somebody about whatever it is that they're going through.
Where else in life does that happen?
Yeah, I can't think of another spot. It's great to go to your friends to get that support, but at the end of the day, they're not trained specifically in how to help you navigate those problems.
Specific issues that you might have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the therapist can kind of act as a think tank for you. So they're an experienced professional who can give you the tools that you need in order to achieve whatever goals that you have, help you step into your power to live the life that you aspire for.
I feel like there's this misconception that therapy is Freudian. What does that look like?
So we're thinking a bald man with the notebook, clients laying on this big leather couch.
You realize that your mother is the root of all your issues. But that's not really what it is.
No.
Yeah, I hope that people aren't intimidated by what therapy supposedly is.
Yeah.
In fact, what it is, it's you go to the doctor if you break your leg.
Right.
You know, if your mental health is operating in a way where you are inhibited, where you're not living the life you want to live because of what you're thinking or feeling, there are people there who are trained, like a doctor is, to help you feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's important. I have a couple statistics here that I was shocked to learn. The National Institute of Mental Health found that in 2021, 21 million adults in the U.S. had at least one major depressive episode.
Wow.
21 million.
That's a significant amount of people.
Yeah. The World Health Organization estimates that globally speaking, 5% of adults have depression. That's a huge number. This is millions and millions of people who go through this together.
Yeah.
And yet we don't talk about it that much. You know, even just what I'm very passionate about is anxiety disorders.
Right.
The most common of which is generalized anxiety disorder. 6.8 million adults, that's nearly 7 million people just in the US, have generalized anxiety disorder.
Wow.
So these are very universal and important things that can really help a large portion of the population.
There's so many taboos around it too. So people don't necessarily want to reach out for help, talk to people about it. And oftentimes people don't know how to talk about it.
Yeah.
Especially with all the misconceptions that there are. For example, when people are talking about depression and sadness are not necessarily the same thing.
No.
Nervousness and anxiety,
Not the same thing.
not necessarily the same thing.
Right, because you have these levels of useful, important human emotions like sadness, like fear. These are important things.
Yes.
But anxiety isn't very useful. It's when fear gets out of control. Depression is when sadness gets out of control. And at that point, you're not living the life you want to be living because your mental health is acting up. And there are ways to get it back under control. Very effective ways that are available.
Very effective evidence-based strategies
Yeah.
that you can work through. It's possible to get help. Help is out there. There's so many places that you can go to find the right therapist for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Which we will talk about the entire process of how to find the right therapist. It can be a little intimidating of a process, but
it is
totally doable.
We're going to have a whole episode on it.
Yes.
So don't you worry.
What we call the therapist dating process. While we're on the topic, talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned that sadness, fear, things like this are important human emotions. We tend to resist that so much.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Oftentimes we think, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling nervous, I need to not feel this as soon as possible. I'm going to resist this emotion. But sadness, nervousness, what we call negative emotions are part of typical and often healthy human functioning. We need those emotions in order to function normally. And having them informs us of our current situation and maybe how we want to move forward.
Yeah. And also, not to get too philosophical here, but if you feel sadness, that means you came from happiness.
Yeah.
One can't exist without the other, right? I feel like so much of the negative experience of what we might call negative emotions comes not from the emotion itself, but from our frustration with it and our fighting it and our trying to run away from it instead of just sitting and being like, hey, you know what? Today I'm sad. Acceptance. Marjolaine and I love acceptance. You're going to be hearing a lot about that because it is so powerful.
I'll probably say it a million times, but once you accept where you're at, you can finally take the steps to change it.
Yes.
You can say, non-judgmentally, here's where I am. And now that I've accepted that this is how it is, I can now take these steps to make change.
Yeah. I was watching an Oprah interview. She had a psychologist on, and they were talking about her relationship with food and what sometimes went into some disordered eating. And she kind of jokingly said to him, like, why is that my vice when I'm feeling down? Why can't my vice instead be to go for a run or to garden or something useful? And you know what he said in response? He said, well, might I offer you that instead of any of those things, the alternative actually is you just sit and feel your feelings.
I'm mind blown by that.
The whole audience went, whoa, because that is such a foreign concept to us that, you know what, you can actually just sit there and be sad.
Yeah.
And embrace that and work through that instead of trying to run away from it.
And it's probably the healthiest thing you can do is to really sit in that discomfort.
Absolutely.
Lean into it.
Absolutely.
Because then you can finally confront it instead of just distracting yourself.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk about it a million times, but people, instead of feeling those feelings, just start doom scrolling.
Oh, social media.
Social media.
We'll get into all of that. I'm really excited.
Me too.
Yeah.
We have a lot to cover.
A lot to cover. A lot to talk about. But we kind of figured we have these amazing conversations anyway. We said, you know what? Let's press record and see what happens.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts?
Yeah. One last thought. For those of us who are thinking about going to therapy, I just want them to be aware. Therapy is weird. It's very odd. You're walking into a room with a stranger who you've never met, and you're divulging all your deepest, darkest secrets to them.
Yeah.
That's vulnerable. That's not a common situation to be in, and it's okay to feel uncomfortable.
And oftentimes they see that in the very beginning of treatment, things might feel a little bit worse before they feel better.
Yeah.
Especially if you've never opened yourself up in that way before.
Because you may be bringing things up that you haven't thought about in years. You've never addressed them before. So, of course, when you bring those things up and you bring them to the forefront, it's going to hurt. And things might get a little bit worse before they get better.
But trust the process.
Trust the process. It's not one size fits all. It takes time.
Yeah.
We all get there eventually.
That's going to be our new motto. Trust the process. And accept the process.
Accept the process.
We love the acceptance. All right, Marjolaine.
All right, Michael.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone, for our pilot episode. Join us next time where we will be talking about
attachment styles.
Very important with intimacy and relationships.
Absolutely.
All right, this has been Therapy in Progress. I'm Michael.
I'm Marjolaine.
We'll talk to you next time.
Bye. Therapy in Progress is produced for informational and entertainment purposes only and is not meant to substitute for professional medical or mental health care.
Views expressed here are our own. If you're in need of support, we encourage you to reach out to a licensed professional.
Your mental health matters. Talk to you next time.